to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening to you all, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. It is the preview show again. We are back with another preview show brought to you, of course, by us here at the Fanzone and sponsored by the wonderful Loving My Socials. So if you have a business and perhaps you're watching this and thinking, I could do with some lovely pictures like the ones on school, I can't speak tonight. The ones on screen.
Well, yeah, for me to do it then. give you a bit of rest.
Some lovely pictures like the ones on screen. Some lovely graphics. You do branding, social media, posters, you name it, Leanne can do it. So if that's a little bit of you, then head over to our website, www.thefanzonepod.co.uk, and you can find out all you need to know about all of our sponsors, and of course, Leanne over there as well. A good evening to you all. I can see you all in the chat already. Ian, Leslie, David, Dan, Lee, Josh, Boltmaster, BWFC. Very warm welcome to you all this evening. And of course, our channel members, absolute legends. But let's get cracking. We are joined this evening by Jules from Under the Abbey Stand podcast. How are you this evening, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. Yeah, for those of you who've been watching the podcast for a little while, you'll know that I've got a long-standing record of doing podcasts with Under the Abbey Stand. Obviously, there was the rearranged fixtures from last season, and it feels like we've spent a lot of time talking to you boys. So thanks for joining us again.
No worries. Do you remember, Guy, you've just brought that to my mind. Do you remember one of your fans who travelled over from China for that fixture? Do you remember it made the news? I just remembered that.
Poor, right.
Poor bugger. That's such a shame.
Yeah, that's typical Bolton look for you. But this evening's episode, we can't wait to get stuck into it. We hope you're excited too. And we'll kick off with our first segment of the evening, which is, of course, our season so far. Wanderers then just outside the playoffs in 9th place. We are 3 points. Well, a win on Tuesday could see us move into those playoff spots. There is a lot of games still to be played for some teams in that mix, and others like Stockport County have played. There seems to be a very odd number of fixtures dotted about the table, which is strange. It makes it difficult to plot where we could finish. Cambridge at the opposite end of the table, not doing too well. Jules, what did you expect coming into this Sky Bet League One campaign? And were you sort of expecting the ride that you've had so far?
To be honest, I think this season of the 4th season we've been in League One. Obviously, we came up together, didn't we? Which feels like a long time ago. Yeah, feels weird that, doesn't it? But yeah, of the 4 we've been up, this is the one that I think we knew was always going to be the toughest. We're obviously a bit of a small fish in the bigger pond that is League One, and I think we all know that. I think we always know that we're operating on a smaller budget than a lot of teams. But this year, especially, if you're looking at Wrexham, Stockport, Mansfield coming up from League Two, Birmingham, Huddersfield, and Rotherham coming down from the champ, it just felt like there was no one. It just felt like the quality of the league, the standard had just risen so highly. And I think we always knew it was going to be tough. We always knew of all the seasons, this was going to be the biggest battle. So I think we're probably about, in a weird way, where I'd expect us to be. I didn't expect it to take us 9 league games to win a game, to be honest. I thought we'd be a bit more sort of consistent than that over the course of the season. But it's been really Jekyll and Hyde, really, to be honest. It's been August, we sort of started really promisingly. We were, despite not winning, obviously, but if you're just looking at performances, we were like top 5, like XG. All our stats were telling a totally different story, and we were so exciting. We were scoring goals. Then we got a couple of injuries, especially Shane Lavery got injured, and then the performances went as well as the results. And there was a point where I just couldn't believe Monk still had a job, to be honest with you. Then out of nowhere, we sort of went back to basics. We changed how we were playing. He was trying to play this really expansive, like play out from the back, loads of possession. He just scrapped it all, to be honest. He just thought, let's just go route one here. And it worked. And we won 3 games on the trot, kept a clean sheet in all of them. And then even more recently, we've been really, really solid. But right in the middle of that, you've got losing 6-1 to our biggest rivals, Peterborough. So like, it's just been this constant, like, you sort of, you give a little bit and then you drop back down, and then it's like, give a little bit and then you're absolutely crushed again. So it's it's been a weird way of getting here. But I think for us, we're just quite glad that we're still in touch, given we have had a lot of injury problems. So I think if we can keep in touch till January, try and have a good window, and then second half of the season sort of make up a 4 point gap, seems like doable. But yeah, to be honest, for us, it was always just try and stay up this year, and we're within touching distance. So I think without being spectacular, it's been okay.
Jules, can I ask you a question on Gary Monk? You touched upon him already. Obviously, he's a manager that, as we all know, has managed at a higher level. From the outside looking in, very much a surprise appointment. With a surprise appointment, with all due respect.
No, of course.
What's your only because of his recent past, I guess, in terms of where he's managed. Is that his level, or is he the right manager at the wrong time for you guys, or is he just the wrong manager? Full stop.
It's really hard, because first thing on Gary Monk, right, is the situation he walked into was the biggest hospital pass of a situation, totally out of anyone's hands except Neil Harris, who came in, replaced Mark Bonner about this time last year.
Mm-hmm.
Bonner, obviously, for the context of your listeners, a club legend, came all the way through the ranks. I think he had every single job from academy volunteer through to first team manager. So he was proper, embodied the club. He was a supporter when he was a kid. So separating with him was a tough thing. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
Then Neil Harris comes in, big appointment. Yeah. And then Neil Harris disappears after 10 games. Millwall's chairman comes knocking and he's gone after 10 games. He went from Gillingham in League 2 to Millwall in the Championship, and now they're 6th or 7th or something. It's quite remarkable. So he left us in a spot at the end of February when we were 3 points clear of the drop, but on a bad run of form, and we had a really tough week against you boys.
Yeah,
the rearranged fixture was his last game. So he
when
left
that Wild Taylor got sent off, was it?
Exactly that. Within the space of about 10 minutes, because we equalised late, didn't we? Is that right? Did we equalise and then you scored? I can't remember.
Yeah, Mendes Gomez scored almost straight after you equalised. Yeah,
that's right. So there was a moment when we equalised where it looked brilliant. We're flying here, and then in about 10 minutes, you boys scored. Lyle Taylor got himself sent off.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the manager walked out after full time. So within literally about 20 minutes, we'd gone from 100 to 0. Anyway, this is all a bit of context to come to Monk. He basically walked in, and in his first week, we played 3 games, and we lost 11-1 on aggregate. It was 6-0 to Lincoln, drew 1-1 first game, 6-0, and then 4-0. It was a team. It was a disastrous squad, loads of injuries. It was a proper hospital pass for situation. They must have been so demoralised. They've just bought into Neil Harris, and then he disappears, drop of a hat.
Yeah.
So he did well to keep us up last year, is what I'm trying to say. And then I think this year, the reason they went for Monk is what they really want to do is give us an edge in the transfer market, because we can't have an edge budget-wise because we're just not. We're just never going to be a team with a lot of money. But what we can be is, if for promising, especially loan players, you can say to them, well, look, you're going to go and play under a manager who's never managed below the Championship, managing Europe, who wants to instill this really attacking style of football. And it might take a while to change that identity. It might take a relegation to change the identity. But I think in the long run, their plan is, if you can back a manager of the sort of pedigree that Monk is, and change the sort of footballing philosophy at the club, in the long run, it will some point click. It's a long. The thing is, though, you know as well as me as a supporter, it's hard to think long term like that, right? It's we spend our money to go every week, and it's also got to work in the short term. We can't just write off 2 seasons. You've got to have a short term plan as well. And I think what happened, as I mentioned there, you could see what he was trying to implement, but we just didn't have the quality. We didn't recruit for him at all. So the best example of it, and this will bring you onto it, is we waited all summer for a number 9. All summer. It was the one thing we needed to click. Yeah. And the guy we bring in is Daniel Lindeloo. And I can give you my thoughts on him properly, and actually it's not as bad as you think they're going to be. But Daniel Lindeloo, to be the number 9 we waited for, was... Yeah,
I can imagine.
We just blame the recruitment more than we blame Monk, to be honest, on that.
And more than you blame on Lunderlow, I would suspect as well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, to be honest, if you want me to talk about him for a second, I don't think Lindeloo is a bad squad player to have at this level, especially down at the bottom end. He just can't be your out-and-out number 9. That's the problem. The guy works really, really hard against the right defence. He's been utilised really well against Stevenage. I thought he was brilliant. He was like against Carl Piagiani, you know, the big lad who heads up to next week. He looked after him really well all night, and then we had a runner going off him, and like he scored a couple of goals for us. He's chipped in. He's always worked hard, and I think it's with him. It's like I think all the endeavours there. I think he's got those little flashes of quality. If he's your third choice striker for us, you're probably thinking, all right, we've done all right. If he's your fourth choice, even better. Yeah. But the fact that he came in and he took that number 9 shirt, we waited all summer for him, and then he rocks up. And it's like, I don't know.
That's been reflected on it on his return. Then, given what you're saying, he's not scored that many, has he? To be fair,
no, he's only scored a couple. I mean, to be fair to him, like in that sort of. As I mentioned, that sort of change of like style and like going back to basics. And Lundaloo was a big part of that because instead of playing out from the back, it's very much find Dan up top. And he's really important to the system. So I sort of am not too critical of him. I sort of like, it feels like, you know, the context around signing him always just sort of, people were never going to feel excited about signing Dan and Lundaloo. It was always felt like it was our 7th pick, if you know what I mean.
I had him as a centre forward who doesn't necessarily know how to play centre forward.
You lads are probably harsher on him than we are, I reckon. I think we're probably. I mean, bear in mind, mate, we signed Brian Loft as our other striker, so I mean, it couldn't really feel much worse than that.
Yeah, it's a Swindon, is it? And we're wrong with that.
No, he was at Rovers and Port Vale and.
Okay.
He's been injured quite a bit this season, but it's not. I think our recruitment team has not been the you know, there's not a lot of praise being dished out to our recruitment team this summer. But like, given that, to go back to your first question on Monk, I think Monk is clearly a manager of really decent pedigree. He's clearly a good coach. I guess it's just like, do you need a bit of an edge at this level? Like you look at Ainsworth going to Shrewsbury, and I looked at that and I went, "Oh, I'd love a manager like that." Danny, you know when you're in that proper dogfight down the bottom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like, I'm sure Monk's.
It does have to be said, though. I mean, one loss in your last 8 games, but eight games. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think of those being in the league. It does make for good reading. It certainly looks like things are taking a slightly upward trend.
Definitely, yeah. And like,
how do you see the rest of the season going then for Cambridge? Do you think you've got what it takes to avoid the drop?
I just look at this. I'm looking at the league table now, and I just look at it, and I look at Blackpool in 19th, and think, my God, if they're the team in 19th, like there's one spot available, and like I think Orient are a good side as well. I'm not sure what they're doing down there. So like I look at Crawley, us, Shrewsbury, and Burton, and I go, it's hard to look beyond the 4, isn't it? Having said that, like there was a few predictions we made in the summer, which was like. We'll go down along the lines of like I think it's one of the lads from our pod actually said like my big thing is that I think we'll go down, but I think we'll go down through sort of no fault of our own. Like it will just be too strong a division for us, and we'll sort of do okay, and we'll be in touch and just be slightly worse. Which is I know like quite a simple thing to say, but I think it won't be everything I was just saying about recruitment. Sort of like. That's just sort of where we are in this division. So I know I'm sounding a bit pessimistic, but bear in mind, I saw us go 9 games without winning a game of football this year. So it's quite hard to like sort of get over that. It takes a bit of time. Do you know what I mean? So, so I think we'll stay competitive. And I think if we have a good January, I think it's not impossible for us to stay up, but there's just no forgiving. It's so unforgiving, the league this year, that it's hard to say.
Absolutely. And bringing things right back to the preview show and bringing it back to the now, we will bring you the latest team news in our injury update section. As we said in the last preview show, things are looking slightly better for Bolton Wanderers. The latest, I think, absentee will be Sean. Unfortunately, picked up his 5th yellow card of the season so far after disputing a decision from the referee, which I'm going to be honest, you can't really blame him for. There were quite a few of decisions that I was disputing in the stands, probably less politely than he was.
It made me laugh. It made me laugh though, Ben, when Ian Evatt has said that he needs to watch his mannerisms in terms of mouthing off and giving stick to the officials when his manager is Ian Evatt. You know what I mean? Pot kettle black and all that type of stuff. So
yeah, he's very vocal, isn't he, Shabby? He's not shy to put his feelings across when things don't go his way. Very vocal.
It's a winner, isn't it? Which is what you want, I think. But yeah, if your boss is squaring up and chinning 23-year-old lads on the pitch, then not really got much hope, has he, really, to be fair?
I'd hardly call it chinning. Well, but yes, I think the principle remains the same. Exactly. Randall Williams or Osei Tutu, I think, are the likely candidates to replace him in the starting lineup. I think Osei Tutu, after coming back from injury, actually looked really good at the weekend. I thought he looked impressive. His directness and his ability to move the ball up the pitch, I think, is something most of our other fullbacks lack. I think Shabby can do okay. I think Cogley's okay, but they rely a lot on the outside centre halves and midfielders. I think Osei Tutu is probably one of the only ones who can do it on his own.
Yeah, just for the Cambridge fans listening, of course, Jules, Jordi Osei Tutu was a lad that we signed in the summer from Bolton, who are obviously in the Bundesliga. He came through Arsenal, and he has got historically quite a poor injury record, and he has been injured for us, but I don't know, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, of course, Jules, but when you know and you're watching a player that is the level above, I don't know how often that's happened to you guys, or level above maybe a more, you might say, in terms of his touch, his awareness, his ability obviously on the ball, and his kind of the way he kind of moves forward with the ball and gels with his teammates. He is that level above, and you can clearly see that. So that's what Ben's kind of alluding to. And
he's fit for Tuesday, is he? He's fit for tomorrow night.
He's come back from injury. Yeah, he's played a few minutes in recent weeks. Yeah, he can play both left back and right back, or wing back, as we like to call them. But yeah, just to give you a bit of context, and obviously Randall Williams is the other guy that could also play at left back.
Indeed, but there are some that will be missing. Kyle Dempsey will be out with a knee injury still. Mendes Gomez, Owen Toll, and Chris Farino, all with hamstring injuries. But there has been a clean bill of health from the players who featured at the weekend. So George Thomason went off, and I think there were some concerns around the ground that he might, after just coming back from injury, be set back a little bit. But the good news is that he's fine, and Gethin Jones has got through his first 90 minutes, which is good news as well. The squad overall is in a pretty good place. It feels like it's been a while since Evert's had a full squad, or more or less a full squad, to choose from. So long may I think that's continue.
Again, Jules, for context, and any Cambridge fans listening, I think that's why. I mean, the expectation's there anyway because of the club we are, but I think the expectation is higher this season than before because we've obviously enhanced our squad depth. And as Ben's saying, though, we've got quite a lot of players who, will probably or might be in contention to start, but they're injured. But we've still got players who can play who are just good enough for the level. So yeah, that's why there's so much expectation, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So, Jules, over in Cambridge's camp then, what's the squad looking like for you? There are a couple of teams at this level. Blackpool, who obviously we played at the weekend, and Northampton have got a very, very long injury list. Are you one of those?
We're not quite as bad as Northampton, who I think were the worst going into last weekend's game, but we're not far off it at all, especially if you think Lindeloo obviously can't play Tuesday. So we've got two strikers. Shane Lavery's just coming back from injury. He was out for a long time. He's not played a full 90 yet. I'm not sure if he'd be ready to go to do 90. So only Ryan Lofton, Academy graduate Brandon and Njoku available up top. Centre mid, we've only got two options. Rest are all injured. Corey Smith, a few of your listeners might remember, played a lot in the Championship, and Jordan Cousins as well. But we signed Gary Gardner this summer, who a lot of your listeners might know. He's not played a minute. No sign of him playing a minute anytime soon. Just going back to that recruitment thing, by the way, you can see the frustration all comes in, right?
That's a strange sign. Sorry, that's a strange sign, isn't it, Gary Gardner?
It's a Monk one. because Monk was at Birmingham, and
Right.
I think that was Monk's. I think from what I've gathered from speaking to Leeds and Birmingham fans and Middlesbrough Sheffield Wednesday fans, Monk's like best time was at Birmingham, and he was really operating under some really tough constraints because I think they were going through all their financial troubles at the time, and they were really decent under him. And he had Michael Morrison was his centre back, who is obviously our captain, and has come full circle. Came through our academy and then went off, played some good football, and then came back. But he'll be at the heart of the defence. So yeah, like we've got an 11, but the thing is, what we don't have is any sort of rotation. And I think we put quite a lot into Saturday to come out with a point, and we've just got no choice to. We've just got no options to really change it up. So
when I said it was a strange one, I was obviously I'm saying and going back to what you've just said in terms of the signings that he's made, but obviously Gary Monk was at Birmingham maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and obviously these lads are 5 years older. And with you saying before about having him in charge, Monk, as a way of maybe attracting young academy lads and 23s. Signing players of that ilk. I mean, I get you need experience, but I would have thought you maybe would have signed one or two, like, I don't know, Chelsea or, I don't know, some youngsters from loans. You know what I mean?
There's Josh Stokes is the big one that is the loanee that we signed. Well, is the really exciting attacking loanee that we signed is Josh Stokes, who's at Bristol City, who is just coming back from injury, but it's a game too soon for him. He's back Saturday. Then there's like Manny Longello, who was at Birmingham as well, actually, but I don't think under Monk. I think that's just coincidence. He's a wing back. He's out. Kel Watts is a centre half. He's like good age. He's like him and Shane Lavery, like 24, 25-year-olds, bit of experience at League One. Like it feels like they were the sort of players that he wanted to bring in. And then Gary Gardner was sort of maybe like, his man on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? That like,
yeah.
But he just hasn't played a minute. And the problem is, not to go too deep into our recruitment strategy, but the thing is, like you say, one of those is okay. You signed Corey Smith as well. It's like, okay, 2. But then you've got Jordan Cousins as well. We've got 3 of the same profile player who are all sort of relatively injury-prone players with a lot of championship experience, but on the way down in their careers. You're asking quite a lot for all 3 of those to work, take up a lot of your wages as well. So I think that's a bit of frustration. But
it's a tough gig, isn't it?
Oh, mate, it's so tough. But look, situation we're in is like we've got 2 centre mids fit, 2 strikers that can play tomorrow night, loads of centre halves. So maybe we'll go to 5 or something tomorrow night.
10-1.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's tricky sub as well. I mean, I think the big thing is that we've become really much more stubborn, and we're a much harder team to break down than we were like 2 months ago. So I think we'll give you a game. I'd be surprised if you ran away with it, to be honest with you, because apart from Peterborough, but let's not talk about that.
You brought it up.
I know. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to block it out of my mind. But apart from that, teams haven't really been running away from us this year. We've always managed to sort of stay in games, and we've been quite stubborn in that respect. So I'd expect us to stay like that, but I just don't think we've got legs on the bench to freshen it up. So whether we can do it for 90 minutes would be my big thing for tomorrow night.
That's the big thing with us as well, isn't it, Ben? We keep on the ball a lot, don't we? And wear and grind teams down. That's probably one of our biggest strengths, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think for me, hearing that, I mean, we've not been great in across the full 90 minutes. So it's nice to know that perhaps even if we have a bit of a slow first half and things don't kick off the way that we might hope, you've not really got too many options to bring the game back to life after half time. So it might just fizzle out a little bit and let us take a foothold on the game and not really have to worry too much, which is a little bit of a relief, I think. But for any of you away fans making the trip down, where can you get your hands on some ale? Now, I wish we did this segment a little bit earlier on in the podcast, because the last time I went down to Cambridge was, when would it have been? Not last season, I think perhaps the season before, and it was about 30 degrees. It was absolutely boiling.
August,
and the only ale that I had was warm beer on the way down on the coach. It was a very unpleasant experience.
It's not necessarily on the way down, though, Ben. We do have quite a large Southern White contingent who make these type of trips, so they could be going slightly up, I guess.
Yes.
Who knows?
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah,
wherever you're coming from, you could be coming from China, like someone did last season.
Yeah, exactly.
Wherever in the world you're visiting from, where can you get your hands on some ale then, Jules?
Well, I would recommend, I think the best spot in town the Abbey, as you sort of know, is like sort of in town, but not in town. It's like there's not much around it. But it's not an out of town ground. It's quite a weird mix. But I think if you're coming on the train, my recommendation is when you come to get into central Cambridge station, your walk to the ground will take you past Mill Road, and there's about 10, 12 pubs along Mill Road or just off it that are all really good. My top recommendations, but it's obviously down to taste. You could find anything that you're up for down there. I'd recommend the Kingston Arms, which is a really good like real ale pub, especially if you're into your proper like camera sort of real ale type things. That's really good. The White Swan's an Irish pub up the road. There's a really good pint of Guinness. So I'd recommend that. And then if you're coming a bit closer, if anyone's, because it's an evening game, I'll give you one that does a good bit of food as well, which is the Wrestlers, which is on Newmarket Road. So it's actually probably the closest pub to the ground as well. And they do a good bit of grub as well. So get yourself a good pint and a bit of Thai food, I think it is in there.
None of these are good for you, Ben, with your Aperol Spritz, are they? But sounds of it.
No, mate.
After an Aperol Spritz, mate, get yourself down by the river. I don't know what it'd be like on a November Tuesday night, but it'd be worth a go.
We'll move on then, shall we?
Swiftly.
Yes. We'll bring you our final segment of the evening, which, of course, we get involved with at home. Get your comments in the chat as we head into What's the Score? Cole, do you want to fire us off?
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Like, obviously, there's a huge expectation for us. I think, for as far as we're concerned, and I touched upon this last night, we need to win the next 4 games. We need to go into the 5th game, which is Wickham away, just before Christmas, firing on all cylinders.
Yep.
We should look to close that gap to that top 2 and make up that average point per game. Get it up to around 2 points, which is obviously what's required to get out of this division. As a result of that, of course, we do, with all due respect, Jules, need to go to Cambridge and win. And I do expect us to do so. I do think it'll be a tighter encounter than maybe recent times against Cambridge. So I'm going to go for a 2-1. I think we'll have too much firepower for Cambridge, unfortunately, for Jules.
Very fair assessment. I think I tend to agree with you, especially on the points about needing to win the next 4.
I think they understand that as well, though, Ben. I think they understand that now. There's no excuses anymore, is there? They're playing for the manager's future. And if that reaction following Blackpool's the result against Blackpool, should I say, is anything to go by, then they are playing for the manager. I think that can't be denied anymore. And I'm going to plug your wonderful video that you managed to capture after the game against Blackpool on Saturday. If you've not seen that, head over to our Twitter account or X account. Sorry, Mr. Musk. Ben does a really good job of encapsulating the spirit within the dressing room, which is evident as far as Ian Ebbott's concerned. But they have to prove that every single week and not fall on their asses against teams that they should be beating.
Absolutely. I think that, it was a question that had long been asked, whether the players are playing for him, whether they aren't, what the atmosphere in the dressing room is like. And I think those whispers can almost be put to bed. However, as you said, it's no good backing the manager if you can't go out on Saturday and back yourself and end up putting on a shower of
performance.
Yeah, that's the
shower of performance. We'll do that.
Jules, how are you feeling?
Well, funny enough, I was thinking about it just before coming on, and my actual prediction is 2-1 as well, 2-1 Bolton. But because I'm trying to represent the U's on this, I'll say 1-1. I do think we'll make it really tough for you. And as I said, my prediction is I think you'll probably win it late. I think we'll find a way to stay in the game. I think we've got just about enough to trouble you in areas. I think Lavery being back is huge for us. You'll obviously score, but we are stubborn enough that I think you won't score too many. So I think it was one of them that will be 1-0. You'll be knocking at the door or second half, and then we won't have enough on the bench to freshen it up. But I think it's all sort of one of them where even we'll come away with it thinking, do you know what? It's actually not been the worst night, in the sense of putting in a good performance against a team that's probably got playoff aspirations, and we're in the position we are with our injuries. So yeah, I'd think I'd go 1-0 to be positive, I guess.
As Liam said, 1-1 is definitely a possibility. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Wanderers win on the road. Hopefully a 3-point podcast to bring you on Wednesday. But until then, take care. Hope you enjoy the game tomorrow. For those of you making the trip down, up, across, left or right, then enjoy. Yeah. Safe travels wherever you're coming from or going to. Enjoy the game, safe travels, and we'll see you in the next one. If you want to find out more about Under the Abbey Stand, then you can find a link to their Twitter page in the description below. Go and have a nosy at those.
On that note, yeah, that's what I was going to say. On that note, New Ben was on the episode with the lads yesterday. I think you recorded it, Jules. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And he represented us very well. So the lads did a cracking job on the episode, but Ben contributed well to that. So yeah, definitely worth a listen.
Absolutely. That is the spirit. Until the next time, though, you've been watching the Fanzone podcast and the preview show sponsored by Loving My Socials. Take care, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
When you whites.